Hello everyone and welcome to the lecture series on ARM microcontroller and embedded systems. So today we are dealing with module number 3, lecture number 26. So in the last lecture we have studied about the memory shadowing and introduction to the sensors and actuators. So in today's lecture we'll be studying about the different types of sensors, different types of actuators and why they will be used. Right. So we have studied memory shadowing. Memory shadowing is nothing but we had the option that whenever we try to use the memory, we will be using a memory as a shadow of the actual memory whatever we have. So the ROM content whatever we have, the shadow of it at the same address will be copied to a RAM, and then it was used as a memory shadow, and then the whenever you require the data you will be getting the data from the shadow of the particular RAM. So after that we have studied about the introduction to sensors and actuator, what is sensor, what is actuator, why it will be used, and in the today's lecture we will be studying about the IO subsystems. IO subsystems are nothing but the different sensors, different actuators what are there to be used in the embedded system we'll be studying today. IO subsystem. The IO subsystem of an embedded system, it facilitates the interaction of the embedded system with the external world. Because we want the inputs, we want the output to be used to the external world or to be interacting with the external world. So the interaction happens through the sensors and actuators connected to the input and output ports respectively of the embedded system. So the sensors may not be directly interfaced to the input port, instead they may be interfaced to a signal conditioning and translating systems like ADC, optocoupler, etc. So what are these sensors and what are actuators we'll study in the next. So the first device what is used is light emitting diode. This is actually a actuator it is. So light emitting diode is an important output device for the visual indication of any embedded system. We know that this is like the LED is having a uh, uh, full form as the light emitting diode. This is exactly similar to the diode whatever we have. It will be having a P junction, it will be having an N junction. One will be working as anode and the other one will be acting as cathode. So in this figure, this terminal whatever we have, this is anode and the other one is cathode. This anode is connected to VCC via the resistance and cathode is connected to ground. So LED can be used as an indicator for the status of various signals. So you can note that the device is on, the battery is low, or the charging of the battery or something like that. Whenever we take say your smartphone, whenever you try put it for charging, one small LED glows on the screen. It indicates that the battery is charging and you have kept your mobile on the charging mode. And once we switch on our ARM controller board, at that time also it shows a LED which is blinking. So the indication of the thing which is performing or the action what is happening, that is indicated by a LED. LED is a PN junction diode and it contains an anode and cathode, and as explained here. So for the proper functioning of the LED, the anode is to be connected to the positive terminal and the cathode should be connected to negative terminal. So the current whenever it passes through the LED must be the current what is going to the LED should be limited to a value below the maximum current it can hold. So for that, every time whenever we connect the LED, it is better to connect a current limiting resistor in series with it, so that the current what is going to the LED will be limited and you will be getting a better response as well as the better lifetime of a LED. So this resistor along with VCC supply connection and the ground connection, the LED will be glowing. This is how we interface the LED into any embedded system. So LEDs can be interfaced to the port, to the port pin of a processor or a controller into this. Okay. In the first method, anode is directly connected to the port pin and the port pin drives the LED. Okay, this is one method. And the second method is the cathode of the LED is connected to the port pin and the anode is connected to supply voltage. Through this also you can glow your LED. So either the anode can be connected to port pin or the cathode can be connected to the port pin. Okay. Type of output device is 7-segment display. 7-segment LED display. Here what happens is, this is a device. The name 7-segment because it has 7 LEDs connected. See this A, B, C, D, E, F, G and then this DP. So all these are the seven LEDs which are connected in the segments in the order that whenever I want to display alphanumeric values, say 0 to 9 and A to Z, if I want to display, then I'll be selecting this particular case. So the 7-segment LEDs will be displaying the content whatever is programmed depending upon that. So 7-segment LED is an output device for displaying alphanumeric characters. It contains 7 segments arranged in a special form used for the displaying of alphanumeric data. And one LED is used for representing one decimal point. This DP, whatever we have, this is a single LED. And the LED segments are named in such a way that they are limited from A to G, and the decimal point whatever we have, this is named as DP. So the LED segments from A to G and DP should be lit accordingly to display the numbers and the characters. If I want to display a 1, so then I'll make this B and C as 1 1, the rest will be keeping it as 0 0. So 1 will be displayed on this 7-segment display. And if I want to display 0, then I'll be litting A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So E, F and G will be off. So all these things will be kept in a value that is called as 1 and only G is left at 0. So then the 7-segment LED display. The 7-segment display comes with the two configurations mainly. One is called common anode and the other one is called common cathode. In common anode what happens is all the 7 segments or all the 7 LEDs whatever we have, its anodes are connected. Our anodes are shorted and will be having a common terminal over here. If I want to make any of this an anode type of a 7-segment display, then I need to be giving here the value that is 0. If I give a value 0, depending upon what number I want to display, I will be getting that particular LED lighting. And in this is a second one which is called common cathode configuration. In this common cathode configuration, what happens is the cathodes of all the 7-segment LEDs or the LEDs will be shorted and will be used as one. So if I want to lit any of these LED segments, I need to be giving a 1 at this particular point. So whenever I use a common anode configuration, then I'll be using a 0 to program the LED to be displayed or the number to be displayed, and whenever I use a common cathode, then I'll be using a 1 to be used as the lighting procedure. The 7-segment LED unit whatever we have, it will be having the uh, segments coming with a current flow limiting resistors also. So the typical maximum value supported by LED display unit is approximately 20 milliamps. So the current can be limited by using a current limiting resistor to the anode and the cathode, so that we will be having a better lifetime for that particular 7-segment LED. The 7-segment LED display, it is used for low-cost embedded applications like your telephone call monitoring services, your point-of-sale terminals, your in malls and all. We will be having this number getting displayed in your the counter whatever it will be displaying, it is a 7-segment LED only, and the weighing machines whatever we have, that also has a 7-segment LED and so on. Okay. So next type of device is called as optocoupler. This optocoupler is a solid state device to isolate two parts of the circuitries. Optocoupler actually combines an LED and a phototransistor. This is a photo LED and a phototransistor. So what happens is it has a IO interface on this side and it has an IO interface on this side. So only when this signal at that time, this interface should be connected to this IO interface. In that particular situations, it will be isolated using this optocoupler. So optocoupler comes in a package with a LED and a phototransistor. So the theme is simple. Whenever this interface sends a signal, the LED will blink, and the blinking of the LED will emit the light, and the light falls on the phototransistor's base. Because of the light, what is falling on the phototransistor's base, the base gets saturated, and there will be flow of current from collector to emitter. So this will make the interface on the side active. Is if I get a signal here and I want only then I want to communicate this or connect this with this one, then I need to be using this optocoupler. And otherwise it will be isolating the two IO interfaces in a circuit. So the circuitry with the port pin connection, that is what is shown here. Here we have seen a optocoupler. The number of that is MCT2M. So we have an input interface that sends a signal, and on the receiving of the signal, we will be getting this collector of this particular phototransistor connected to the port pin. So once this IO interface sends a signal, this port pin will get a signal, and this port pin will make the connection appearing across this port pin, and it will allow the signal to be transmitting, and the signal transmits to the output interface. So in the sense that we are trying to isolate this input interface and this output interface via optocouplers. So coupler will be used to isolate the two IO interfaces so that the excess current or excess voltage on one interface should not be damaging my total system. That is what is the motto. We have a relay, which is a electromechanical device. This relay is an electromechanical device, and in this relay unit acts as a dynamic path selector. Relay, we know that it contains a relay coil made up of isolated wire on a metal core and a metal armature with one or more contacts. So the relay works on the electromagnetic principle. Whenever the voltage applied to the relay coil, current flows through the coil, which in turn generates the magnetic field. This is one. Then the magnetic field attracts the armature core and moves the contact point. The moment of the contact point changes the power and the signal flow path. So we have here relay. This is called a single pole, single throw, because this pole, whatever we have, this can be either closed or open. Okay, which is normally open here. This is a single pole, single throw, normally closed. Whenever we get a signal and this get magnetized, and in that particular case, this will be open. Here it will be normally open. Whenever it is magnetized, it will be closed. Whereas here this is single pole double throw. So what happens is when it is magnetized, it will be connected to this particular pole. Whenever it is demagnetized, it will be connecting to this particular pole. So likewise, we can change the path of the signal or change the control of the signal by using a relay. Okay. So the relay which is used with respect to one particular code, that is what is shown here. So a relay is normally connected using a relay driver circuitry. This is a must. Connected to the port pin of the processor. So here what happens is we have a port pin through which we have a transistor connected, and then we have a diode, and this side it is a relay. Okay, this diode is a freewheeling diode which will encounter the situation that whenever there is a negative current or the reverse current flowing in the circuitry, all those negative circuit or all those negative currents whatever we have, that will be allowing it to pass through the freewheeling diode. So this relay is a normal single pole throw, and it is a normally open type of a relay. So whenever the port pin sends a signal, at that time the current passes through the relay and it magnetizes the coil, because of which the pole will be closed or the contact will be closed, and only then the load gets the current or the voltage flowing through that. Okay, so this is what is the relay explanation for this particular case. And then we have one more device which is called as, this is again an actuator. So this is a piezo buzzer. Piezo buzzer is a piezoelectric device for generating audio indications. Okay, piezoelectric buzzer contains a piezo diaphragm which produces audible sound in response to the voltage applied to it. It comes with two variations. One is called self-driving and the other one is external driving. Piezo buzzers, whatever we have, they will be containing the necessary components to generate the sound and it will generate a applying the voltage. Okay, external driving piezo buzzers support the generation of different tones. Can be varied by applying a variable. So on the application of the pulse train, it will buzz. The piezo buzzer can be directly interfaced to the port pin of the processor control. If you remember in the relay buzzer experiment of the ARM lab, we have used this particular thing, and on application of a button or a switch button, we will be getting this buzzing, otherwise it does not buzz. Okay, so on release of that particular push button, you will be getting the button getting the audio off in that particular case. Okay, so this is what is the application of piezo buzzers. Then we have the input devices or the sensors. We have the first input device, which is a push button. So push button is an input device, and the push buttons which comes into configurations, one is called push to make and the other one is push to break. Push to make configuration is the situation where the switch is normally open and it makes a circuit contact whenever it is pushed or pressed. Okay. So we have one more what is called a push to break, and it is normally closed. Whenever we push it, it will be breaking the circuit contact. So the push button stays in the closed state or open state as long as it is kept in a pushed state, and it breaks or makes the circuit connection whenever it is released, depending upon whether it is a push to make or push to break type of push button switches. So here we show two. One is called the signal which is generating a low pulse. Here we have connected a low port pin. This is VCC and here I have a switch. And this switch is connected to the ground position. So even if I supply the voltage, we will not be getting any output voltage across this particular pin. And when I push this one, then it is making in series with a ground connection. So the port pin will get a value that is 0. So whenever I want to generate a low pulse or logic 0, then I'll be using this type of circuit setup. And if I want to use a device which is generating me high pulse or a logic 1, then I'll use this particular switch or the circuit setup. So here what happens is, we have connected the port pin and we have connected the push button in such a way that the VCC is connected near your push button. Whenever you close this or whenever you push this button, it is in series with the VCC and port pin will get a logic high pulse. So this logic high pulse and logic low pulse generation using the push button can be obtained. So if the two switches whatever we have used here is called push to make button. If it is push to break, then we are by clicking this, we need to be breaking the connection in between the port pin and the ground or VCC. In the today's lecture, we have learnt about the IO subsystems and different sensors and actuators. Sensor wise, we have read only what's that push button switch, and actuators we have completed all. Okay, we'll meet in the next video with the different sensors again. Till then, take care.